Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do we have any apologies and leaves of absence, CEO?
Mayor Price, we have an apology from Sally Rice, who's the Director of Community and Economic Development, and Sally's on leave. While I've got the microphone, can I introduce... Oh, sorry, Acting Jess Reid over there. She's been doing a fantastic job over the last month. And while we're on this item, could I introduce a couple of matters? Yes. So Councillor Harvey has requested to attend this meeting by electronic means. He's given me the required notice and he's unwell and he's wanting to partake in the meeting but not give us all his bugs. So can I please have a motion, and the governance rules do provide that any approval from council would not be unreasonably withheld.
So, CEO, could the motion be to allow Councillor Harvey to participate in the meeting by electronic means? Is that the motion? Perfect. Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Burke. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And for the benefit of the gallery, Councillor Harvey is on the screen behind you. Item 4 is declarations of conflict of interest. Sorry, CEO.
Madam Mayor, I just wonder, given the gallery tonight, I notice there's a planning applicant here, which normally would have planning items earlier in the agenda, but we do have a notice of rescission back at 15 on the agenda, which does relate to a planning matter. I do note the applicant who's involved is in the meeting, and perhaps council might like to consider bringing that forward to perhaps just after item 12.1, and so that applicant can then also go home after that item, if they choose.
So, CEO, you'd like a motion to adjust the agenda to bring forward the
agenda item 15.1 to be heard after agenda item 12.1.
Great. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Horn, seconded Councillor Shepherd. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 4 is declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor Shepherd.
I have a general conflict of interest. I have a close family member who's on the board of the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Given that our next item is open forum and we have a set of questions on that topic, we will ask you to leave the room and welcome you back in at the conclusion of open forum. We'll now move to item 5, open forum. We have one set of questions from Paige Schweitzer. Can I confirm that Paige is in the gallery? Yes. Question 1, to councillors and the CEO, each week and month of delay prevents Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre from installing a demountable classroom which could provide an additional 40 families per week access to care. What actions are being taken and what assurances can you provide that new lease arrangements will be finalised well before the end of 2025, avoiding further delays into 2026? The Acting Director of Community and Economic Development, Jess Reid.
Thank you, Mayor Price, and thank you, Paige, for your question. So at tonight's meeting, a recommendation to issue 2 leases, one to Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and one to Beechworth Kindergarten, will be considered by Council. If supported, Council officers will continue to work with both parties to finalise these leases as soon as possible. It is our intent to have these new leases in place before the 31st of December 2025 to support a smooth transition into the new lease arrangements.
Second question, to all councillors and the CEO, will you acknowledge that the unnecessarily prolonged and damaging EOI process, despite overwhelming and consistent community support for the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre, has caused distress to families, educators and children? Can you concede that the process fell short of the high standards this community expects and deserves? What concrete assurances can you offer to restore trust, demonstrate accountable leadership, and ensure that such missteps are not repeated so that Indigo Shire Council is seen as a genuine champion of its community, not a barrier to it? Acting Director of Community and Economic Development, Jess Reid.
Thanks again, Mayor Price. We stand firmly behind the integrity of our EOI process, which was a comprehensive and transparent process that aligned with our established practices and governance requirements. The EOI resulted in an appropriate provider being selected. However, due to unforeseen circumstances outside of Council's control, this provider withdrew, resulting in delays to the EOI process and the inability to determine a suitable alternative provider. Our intent has always been to ensure Beechworth families continue to have access to a broad range of quality childcare and kindergarten services. Throughout the EOI process, Council has continuously engaged with and supported both the current occupants of the Beechworth Childcare and Kindergarten Centre, and recently has worked to support the joint proposal to enable both Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and Beechworth Kindergarten to continue to occupy the site and provide a broad range of childcare and kindergarten services. We recognise how important childcare and kindergarten services are to our community and understand the stress that the ongoing uncertainty has caused families, children, staff and the community. Council is committed to a path forward to providing certainty about the future of childcare and kindergarten services in Beechworth.
Excuse me.
So thank you. We don't have participation from the gallery. We have asked your questions to the meeting and we have now responded to them. That is the only set of questions that we have for open forum tonight. Councillors will make further comments in the debate in the item as it comes up. We'll now we'll welcome Councillor Shepherd back into the room now that we've concluded the part that she's conflicted for. Item 6 is community and council achievements. Do any councillors have any community or council achievements that they'd like to raise at the meeting? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to acknowledge Yakandanda Primary School for receiving the Alicia Katz Award as part of the Victorian State Government Parliament Prize. The Parliament Prize competition involves students from grades 5 to 12 submitting a 90-second member state to Parliament, what they would say if they were an MP. Councillor Horn and I were lucky enough to attend Yakandanda Primary last month to hear some of these pitches and were absolutely blown away by the maturity and depth of the topics that they presented, from ambulance response times, cost of living pressures, homelessness, and the increasing cost of organised sports for young people, among many others. I'm very proud to share that Yak Primary School beat out 240 other schools in Victoria to receive the Alicia Katz Award, which recognises an inspiring contribution to the Parliament Prize through their strong commitment to a diverse range of issues. The school will receive their award at a special ceremony at Parliament House in August.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to raise a community and council achievement? Councillor Horn.
I'd just like to add my congratulations to the school community of Yakandanda. It was a remarkable occasion, and we've got a room full of future leaders there who'll probably be taking our place in some time. It's a great job.
Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, if I could just raise, I think, a great community achievement by the Kerr Federation Committee on doing a great presentation on, we had Gillian Calvert, AO, a leading advocate for children and families for over 40 years, and she gave a great oration, which was very thought-provoking and really got me thinking about what we could be doing more as a council in that space, and made me think about our strategies and I think one of the main things that I got from her talk was to include children in every aspect of our discussions around strategies and projects. And I really value her talk. I value each year those orations. They're always very interesting, and thank the people involved for creating that space for discussion.
Any other community and council achievements, Councillor Burke?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge Jenny Larkin, who is retiring as Secretary from the Colston Park Committee of Management in Tangambalanga. I want to sincerely thank Jenny for her remarkable contribution as a volunteer and as Secretary of the Colston Park Committee for almost 11 years as Secretary and over 26 years in total. Jenny Larkin has been a driving force behind many improvements at the Tangambalanga Community Centre and the Colston Park Recreation Reserve. Her achievements are quite impressive. Fundraising for the 1.2 million community centre, coordinating the 3-bay joint storage shed project, initiating the Canadian maple tree plantation, steering the committee through the challenges of the COVID-19 public space restrictions, and wasn't that a tough time for us all, helping shape the park's second master plan, and she's been very much involved in the men's shed relocation concept. Jenny's efforts were recognised through the Indigo Council Australia Day Award in 2013. Volunteers like Jenny make an enormous difference to our communities. She's left the committee in a stronger position and leaves behind a legacy that will benefit our community for years to come. Jenny, I hope you're watching. I told you to turn the TV on, so I hope you're watching. On behalf of the Indigo Shire Council and the community, thank you for your dedication, your leadership, and the countless hours you have freely given. We all wish you and Steve every happiness for the future. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. If there are no other community and council achievements, we'll now move to item 7, condolences. Do any councillors have any condolence that they might like to raise at the meeting? Councillor Horn.
The communities of Waganya, Rutherglen and Corowa are mourning the loss of one of their most respected and cherished residents, Mr. Neil Blue Martin, who passed away last month. Arriving in the region 50 years ago for an engineering role with Corowa Council, not knowing a soul, Neil quickly became a pillar of the local community. His tireless service and deep generosity earned him life memberships at both the football and rowing clubs. Remembered as a true gentleman, Neil's legacy lives on in the countless hours he devoted to volunteering and in the many lives he quietly enriched.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Landels, would you like to add to that condolence?
Yes, thanks Mayor Price, and thanks Councillor Horn for that condolence for Neil Blue Martin. Yeah, I don't have anything more in particular to add. He, apart from a life member of the Waganya Rowing Club and the Football and Netball Club, he was the timekeeper, I understand, for Waganya Football Club for decades. And I actually know or knew Blue quite well, because I worked with him for many years at Corowa Shire and then Federation Council. I can say he's just one of those people that would always incredibly reliable. I can imagine with the football club, netball club, the rowing club, just for decades, you could just book him in as being at all the activities on a regular basis. So yeah, a big loss to those communities, and I guess very much also reflects the cross-border nature of Waganya and Corowa. That people are often in those communities very active on both sides of the border, and he was a Rutherglen resident for the last 10 years or so of his life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Do any other councillors have any condolence motions to raise for the meeting? No. If not, I'll move on to item 8. Confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. 1, minutes of the council meetings held on the 23rd of June 2025 and the 15th of July 2025 as published on council's website. And 2, confidential minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of June 2025 as provided. Can I have somebody to move that? As provided to councillors under separate cover. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Harvey, seconded Councillor Landells. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Landells, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thanks.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from previous minutes. There are no reports. Item 10 is petitions. There are no reports. Item 11 is planning and corporate services. There are no reports. So we now move to item 12, community and economic development, and item 12.1, Beechworth Childcare and Kindergarten Centre lease. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to declare your conflict of interest?
As per my earlier statement, I have a conflict of interest, a general conflict of interest, as I have a close family member who is on the board of Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre. So I will vacate the seat, not the chair.
And we'll welcome you back in at the conclusion of the discussion. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes that the Chief Executive Officer or delegates have engaged with the current occupants of the Mayday Hills Beechworth Childcare and Kindergarten Centre and have negotiated a joint proposal that is suitable for both Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and Beechworth Kindergarten to occupy parts of the site under new and separate lease arrangements. 2, accepts the negotiation of lease terms and approves that 2 separate leases be entered into, one by Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and one by Beechworth Kindergarten, for the application of a Department of Education licence to provide childcare and kindergarten services, and upon successfully obtaining this licence to operate childcare and kindergarten services at the Mayday Hills Beechworth Childcare and Kindergarten Centre, 1 Childs Way, Beechworth, Victoria 3747, commencing the 1st of January 2026 for a period of 5 years with the option of a 4-year, 11-month and 30-day extension subject to reasonable achievement of lease conditions, including the following terms. The lessees will A, occupy the building for the purpose of operating childcare and kindergarten services, B, respectively deliver a broad range of childcare and kindergarten services based upon community need, C, develop annual plans that demonstrate community engagement and needs analysis and efforts to maximise the use of this facility and reduce waitlist, and D, provide annual reports to Council to demonstrate progress against delivery of the annual plans that demonstrate community engagement and needs analysis and efforts to maximise the use of the facility and reduce wait lists. And 3, delegates authority to the CEO to finalise the details and execute the lease documents on its behalf. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Landells, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Landells.
Thanks, Mayor Price. At our additional meeting on 15th July, we formally terminated the expression of interest process for the Mayday Hills Beechworth Childcare and Kindergarten Centre. Indigo Shire is a collection of highly capable communities that possess exceptional levels of professional skill, local knowledge and history and extensive assets. Communities that are proud, spirited and eager to embrace their independence. I made mention of assets, and when we often think of as physical buildings and equipment, but what often is underrated is that these assets are in the IP area, the intellectual property. I just want to say that I've been really impressed by the level of professionalism of both the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and Beechworth Kindergarten. And I want to thank each group for the time they've spent taking part in the initial EOI process and for going out of their way to educate myself and other councillors about the valuable work they undertake and have in fact been undertaking for decades within the Beechworth community. We're now at a point where each organisation has submitted a joint proposal for occupation of the Mayday Hills site. And I want to congratulate the management of both groups, Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and Beechworth Kindergarten in arranging a mediation session last month with experienced facilitator and mediator Leanne Mulcahy, which has resulted in this joint proposal. Also want to thank members of our Shire staff for the work done to bring this matter to Council for what I think is a great outcome. I think some wonderful progress has been made over the past 2 to 3 months, and that's credit to all involved to find a workable long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder?
I see this outcome as a very positive move forward. In fact, I believe it is the best possible result and one that every party involved can be genuinely proud of. It's about putting people first, our children, our families, and the dedicated and highly respected teams who support them every day. By working so hard to preserve a familiar environment of both place and personnel, we're doing more than just maintaining continuity. We're actively reducing uncertainty, protecting trust, and minimising disruption during these most formative early years. We've also proven that when we come to the table with open minds and goodwill, it is possible to move forward in a way that's both respectful and practical to all parties. That's not easy to achieve, but it is exactly the kind of leadership our communities notice and value. This motion reinforces something important, that we are united in our shared commitment to early years education and to the people who make it thrive. And perhaps most meaningfully, our young people who are always watching and taking it all in. They're seeing what those two big words, community and cooperation, really look like when they're put into action. I wholeheartedly commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Harvey, did you want to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think it's a sensible outcome. It's fair and equitable to both parties. And after all the discussions we had, it's the best outcome we can have for both the childcare and the kindergarten, because they're going to share the place equally, and hopefully they'll get on with doing the good work for the children for the next 5 or 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor Price. It's been an exhausting few months, not only as a new councillor navigating a complex issue, but also, I imagine, for everyone affected, the families, staff, committee members, and the broader Beechworth community. After careful self-reflection, I'm satisfied that the process undertaken was appropriate and anchored in a single objective to maximise quality childcare and kindergarten services for the Beechworth community. When Council made the decision in 2024 to proceed with the EOI process, it was in response to a difficult context. 2 service providers that were unable to reach a shared agreement on how to maximise the use of the centre. Council stepped in to find a solution that would prioritise community needs and reduce wait lists. I do acknowledge that there was a strong public reaction in Beechworth to the decision in March 2025 to award the EOI to Alpine Children's Services. We can all reflect on how that could have been handled better. But now is the time to look forward, to focus on the children, the families, and what's in the best interests of the Beechworth community. I genuinely welcome the improved relationship that has now emerged between Beechworth Kindergarten and BCEYLC, and their renewed willingness to collaborate is very encouraging. Council remains committed to working productively with both service providers, and along with my fellow councillors, I will aim to ensure a stable and collaborative path forward.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mayor. This motion is about supporting families, strengthening community services, and making sure our valuable infrastructure is used in the best way possible. I share Councillor Dowsley's comments about what an exhausting process this has been. It was certainly not something that I would believe that I'd have to go through. But we do know how vital childcare and kindergarten services are for our community. They give children the best start in life, support parents returning to work, and help attract and retain young families in Beechworth and surrounding areas. This service is also critical to supporting local business. Without accessible childcare and kindergarten, many parents cannot participate fully in the workforce. And this directly impacts staff availability for our local businesses and the overall strength of our local economy. The expression of interest process that was run was thorough, professional, and accepted by all parties at the start. It gave us an excellent understanding of the providers available and identified the best single provider solution for our community. It is disappointing that the preferred provider, Alpine Children's Services, ultimately withdrew in very unusual circumstances after being positive about their future role. But regardless, it left us needing to find another way forward. What we are considering today is not what the EOI recommended as the best solution, but it is the best solution available to us now, one that keeps services operating and maintains continuity for children and families. Shire staff have worked hard with the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and the Beechworth Kindergarten to negotiate a joint proposal. This allows both to stay operating under separate leases but working together, sharing the site and continuing to support local families. The benefits are clear. Stable services for families, secure jobs for staff, reduced disruption for children, and a commitment to community engagement, maximising use of the facility, reducing wait lists, and reporting annually to Council. This motion ensures early years support remains focused on what our community needs today and into the future. In summary, I ask that both providers work together to get the best outcome for the children, the families using the service, and the businesses that rely on it. I commend the motion to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. The only comments that I would make would be to echo the comments of my fellow councillors. I stand by the process that we had run in the context that it was ran in. I think that process has been tested by referral off to different authorities to see if it was a sound process. It was. Perhaps the process could have been different if the context was different at that time. That's not the case. That's not the situation that we're working in. I think that the outcome that we arrived at in March with Alpine Children's Services was a good outcome, but nonetheless, that outcome is not an option to us now. And so I think that, as you can hear, collectively, we're all looking at this proposal before us and seeing it as a great outcome for the Beechworth community, and looking forward to seeing these services that are much loved in this community continue to flourish. So we welcome the renewed engagement of both services to be able to cooperate and encourage that relationship to extend to Council and continue to provide great services to our community. That is all that I'll have to contribute. I'll go back to Councillor Landells as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, thanks. Look, I hear the comments from my fellow councillors that they believe the initial EOI process was sound, and I respect their right to hold those views. And I'd just like to record my view that I believe there were a number of shortcomings in the EOI process. And just very quickly, in areas of inadequate weighting and recognition of local content, that was one. And the other I felt was I couldn't understand why an EOI process would overlap a council election from commencement to conclusion. But anyhow, I do note we're planning to review the council's procurement policy over the next few months or towards the end of the year, and I think that would be an appropriate time to debate those sort of points. I am heartened and optimistic that we have a joint proposal that was submitted by Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre and Beechworth Kindergarten. It's a proposal that will address to a fair extent the waiting list for childcare places. I note the public comments from each organisation that they are keen for Council to conduct lease negotiations swiftly, as each day, each week is costly and stressful in terms of future service provision. I think we'll all rest easier once leases are signed. Until that point, there is work to do. So this recommendation is a significant and positive step forward. I also note that each organisation is vitally invested in the long-term future of their service, and to that end, Council is undertaking a life stages plan, of which a key component of that will be an early years strategy. And we look forward to being able to provide a clear blueprint for the future of these two valuable Beechworth community organisations that allows them to ensure their ongoing viability into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Before I take the vote, if councillors wouldn't mind, the mover is supposed to be the last person to finish speaking, but I did just want to ask the question to the CEO that we discussed earlier today about, CEO, can you confirm how far away will these leases be? What is are we trying to move as quickly as possible on the subleases, and what is a reasonable expected timeline for them?
Thank you, Mayor Price, for the question. The overarching answer is yes, we're moving as fast as we can on the leases. They're perhaps a little more complicated than what's shown here. There's multiple leases involved. There is the original head lease with the council and the owner of the land that is occupied. So that's one lease. And then there's the subleases from us to other people. The head lease itself is subject to some changes because of some redrawing of lines up there and a subdivision that's going in up there. So there's a need to move some of the boundary lines up there. And there's other aspects of that lease that are 30 years old and a bit redundant. So we've taken the opportunity to tidy up that lease and redraw the boundary lines as well. So we can't do the subleases until we know what the original lease looks like. The original lease is very close to finalisation, and then we'll move very swiftly then to talk about the subleases. And I hope the whole thing can be wrapped up within a matter of weeks.
Thank you, CEO. We have had the mover sum up, so I will now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now ask Councillor Shepherd to return to the meeting. Councillors, as we noted earlier at the beginning of the agenda, we'll now move to the notice of motion item, which we are bringing forward in the agenda. So I'll just ask councillors to make their way to that point of the agenda. So, Councillor Horn, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, I would like to move this motion. That council number 1 rescinds the 23rd of June 2025 resolution for agenda item 11.6 PP 240100 243 Beechworth Wodonga Road, Beechworth. And 2, resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the use and development of a dwelling in the farming zone.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. So, councillors, we have this motion in front of us. As you could hear in the words that Councillor Horn read, they are slightly different from the recommendation in the papers, with the change of only a couple of words for it to say to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit. So the motion goes on for 1 to almost 3 pages. The headings for some of those items are endorsed plans for development, compliance with endorsed plans, neat and tidy site, existing septic system, decommission, stormwater rural, outbuildings, no human habitation, removal of existing buildings, construction to follow sediment control principles, mandatory bushfire condition, and CFA conditions, environmental health conditions, head transport for Victoria conditions, and assets condition. I won't read the remainder of them. It would take some time. So Councillor Horn, you have moved that motion. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, demolishing someone's house, their home, is a very serious and emotive situation. So I'm bringing forward this rescission motion because we must ensure that we are making the most informed, balanced and compassionate decision. At our last meeting, I supported the motion to refuse the retrospective planning permit PP 240100 for 243 Beechworth Wodonga Road, Beechworth. That decision was made in good faith based on the information I had at the time. But like you, I have since received new context from the applicant and from public feedback that has shifted my understanding significantly. Since the meeting, I've reviewed the officer report more closely and read the applicant's timeline, which outlines extensive efforts to work with council in good faith and informed our planning officer's recommendation for approval of the permit with a significant list of conditions. This is the advice that we typically rely on when making our decisions. I wasn't able to attend the site visit, and unfortunately, I assumed the structure was a scruffy, rusted shipping container. It's not. The structure is well presented, it's unobtrusive and sympathetic to its surroundings. It's not what I imagined, and that misjudgment shaped my original decision. I've also listened carefully to members of the community, many of whom have expressed real concern, not just for the applicant, but for how the original decision reflects on us as a council. The strong public response is a signal that people want us to be fair, measured, and willing to revisit decisions when other information comes to light. This rescission motion is about course correcting. It's about ensuring our decision is based on full context, not assumptions, and that we don't cause unnecessary harm to someone who has acknowledged wrongdoing, but who is willing and able to address the outstanding issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'd like to reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells.
Thanks, Mayor Price. Look, there are a couple of aspects to this rescission motion that I'd like to speak to. One is the pros and cons related to the retrospective planning permit, PP 240100 at 243 Beechworth Wodonga Road, Beechworth. So there's that, and then there's also the, I guess, procedural aspect of a rescission motion. At our 23rd of June council meeting, I was in favour of our planning department's recommendation to grant a permit retrospectively with a number of conditions and in general work with the applicant to achieve compliance. In the 5 weeks since, I've done my due diligence and looked a bit further into it, and I'm even more convinced of that position. The land cannot be used for any kind of viable farming, and that has been the case historically. I do note that there was some concern about planned removal of 21 trees under the CFA's 39 metre defendable space allowance, and I think that should be considered in the context of a block of land that probably has thousands of native trees on it. I didn't do a count, but there are well over 1,000, I would think. And so we're talking about a number of trees, 21 trees, would probably represent less than 1% of the trees on that block. But it's also, I do note in speaking with the applicant that he is keen to try to argue for the retention of some of those 21 trees. So I thought that was a positive. I think the second point about rescission motions, this goes a little bit to the credibility of council. I'd like to think that when I believe these should be considered where the mover can demonstrate that significant new information has been discovered since the initial decision was taken. And that's probably open to interpretation to each of us as councillors about what significant new information can be quite a subjective term. I know in my case, I wasn't convinced that that was the case, but often we are faced with the challenge of trying to process quite a lot of detailed and complex information in a short space of time, and that might have been more the case of what occurred here. But having said that, this rescission motion is compliant with council's governance rules, and so my preference for new information is simply that. It's my preference, but it's not a requirement of our governance rules. So yeah, that's all I'd like to say on this particular matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mayor Price. I want to begin by acknowledging our planning officer's professional review of this application. They have confirmed that this site can technically accommodate a dwelling, that all referral authorities have consented, and that a similar permit was once before granted. This debate is not about whether a house can exist on this site. If the applicant had applied before building as required, the evidence suggests it would have been approved. The issue is how it was built without a valid permit and what message we send by approving it after the fact. When I speak with people about this issue, their message is loud and clear. Fairness matters, and rules must be applied equally. Indigo Shire processes around 250 planning permit applications every year, and almost all of them do the right thing, applying before they build. Retrospective applications are the exception. If we approve buildings that go up without a permit, we send the wrong signal. Ignore the rules, build first, and seek forgiveness later. That becomes the message. That is unacceptable. Even a small shift in behaviour could see a surge of illegal builds, putting huge pressure on our planning team, draining scarce resources and undermining public confidence in council's planning system. Hundreds of landowners across the Shire do the right thing, spending time and money to obtain proper permits before they start. Approving this house now, even with conditions, tells those people their compliance is optional. Council already made a clear decision to refuse this permit. Reversing this decision without new planning evidence or community consultation risks undermining public trust. We must demonstrate consistency and fairness in applying our planning rules. This is not about being unsympathetic to the applicant or ignoring the professional officer assessments of the land's suitability. It's about fairness, consistency, and protecting confidence in our planning system. For those reasons, I cannot support rescinding the previous decision.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor Price. There are two primary reasons a planning permit is required for this parcel of land. One, the lot size is under 40 hectares in the farming zone. The purpose of this clause is to protect Victoria's agricultural base and to ensure land capability is properly considered. The state government has been very clear when making planning decisions, councils are expected to think beyond the immediate, to plan for future generations. Land capability must be assessed in context. The fact that vegetation grows abundantly here is a clear indicator of agricultural potential. We cannot continue to assume that farming means clearing land for grazing cattle or planting grapevines. We are charged with protecting farmland not just for traditional uses, but for evolving agricultural needs in a changing climate. That's why this land is zoned farming and why the planning scheme prohibits dwellings on lots under 40 hectares. Two, the land is covered by a significant landscape overlay. The purpose of this overlay is to identify, conserve and enhance landscapes of visual, environmental, heritage or cultural significance. In this case, the overlay exists to protect the distinctive natural landscape at the entrance of Beechworth. This building is already visible from the road. The removal of an additional 21 trees above those already removed to build the dwelling to meet BAL 21 defendable space requirements is significant and unjustified. It will only make the building more visible from the road. But both of these issues, the zoning and the landscape overlay, were known on 23rd of June. No new information has been presented since then. So why are we here? Let's be very clear. We're being asked to reconsider a matter without any change in the planning context. I've also listened to the community and I've heard from many members that support my decision at the June meeting. This sets a dangerous precedent that planning rules can be bypassed or that council decisions can be swayed by media coverage or a good story. Council decisions must be consistent, they must be objective, they must be fair and equitable for everyone in our Shire now and into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to make a comment? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a difficult decision for me, but I'm very much afraid that if we rescind this motion, it's going to create a very bad precedent. What happens next time this comes along? Because there will be a next time. So I believe that we should not rescind this motion. I also heard from the public, and I've heard both sides of the argument. And because to me, the applicant was very much aware of what was required and freely admits that he didn't have the proper permits to do the work he has done. So my recommendation is we reject this motion to rescind. Thank you.
On the 23rd of June, I voted for the staff recommendation, but was absolutely going to respect the decision of council that I was on the wrong side of that vote on that night. I agree with the councillors that a rescission is uncommon, and I think that it absolutely should be uncommon because, as Councillor Andell said, we want to express confidence in our decision making. However, I do think that if a councillor does have the experience that they think that they've made the wrong decision or that new information has come to light, that is what the option is there for, and they should so utilise it. And I think that we are in a safe position to return to what was the staff recommendation, what was the very solid recommendation of the planning department, the people who consider all of these issues that we have raised far more than we can, and on balance had put forward that this application could be granted. I think that at the same time, we can do what Councillor Burke alluded to. We have to send a strong message that this is not good orderly planning for Indigo Shire, and we don't welcome retrospective applications. And there is a real risk in bringing a retrospective application to council because the large majority of the time that application will not be granted, and that's exactly as it should be. So I will vote the same way that I did at the June meeting. At this stage, I'll keep an open mind, but I'm looking to vote in favour of the officer recommendation that was put to us at the June council meeting. I'll now go to Councillor Shepherd. You reserved your right.
I did. Having been on council for 9 years, I've never had a rescission motion come before me in the whole time. And I agree, it's not the way to do council business. We are very much, once we've made a decision, doesn't matter what we personally think, we need to support that decision. Nonetheless, when Councillor Horn told me of her great concern about her lack of understanding of this particular issue, I felt compelled to support her. I thought it was brave of her to say that she didn't have all her facts and she needed to review this decision. So I've given her the option by seconding her motion to speak to that. I think the other thing that hasn't been raised here tonight is on that particular night, it was a very big council meeting. We did the budget, we did the council plan, we did a number of strategic documents. I don't think, it went till 9:30 or 9:45. So that type of thing can get lost in our decision making when we have spent weeks working on the council plan and the budget. So I understand it's when you make a decision and you don't feel you've got all the facts in front of you because perhaps you are under pressure, that you should be given the opportunity to right what you think is a wrong. In terms of the councillors saying that we have to set standards and examples, we also have to be very aware that we are working with people and their livelihoods when we're making decisions. We're not such a strategic council that we can't pay attention to the personal and to the subjective things that are happening around us. We are very involved within our community, very rooted in our neighbourhoods. And we have to reflect that in our decision making. We can't be punitive when we're being recommended by our planning department that they feel comfortable with the way this is going, that they're working with an applicant, and for us just to decide, well, we have to police this. This is our role. I don't think it's our role to police things. I think our role is to be generous, caring, and to try and support. That's our job, I think. We are the conduit from the community to council bureaucracy. And sometimes we get it wrong, sometimes we get it right. And I'm supporting Councillor Horn's motion because I think there is we can right something that we may have got wrong in the last decision that we made.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn, would you like to sum up?
I think the question we all need to ask ourselves is, does the consequence of demolishing this building, is it outweighed by the deed? Is the price to pay for making a mistake or many mistakes outweigh the fact that this house would have to be demolished if we decide otherwise? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. So I'll remind the councillors that this motion is to grant a planning permit for the use of development of a dwelling in the farming zone. As I said, it's quite a lengthy recommendation, quite a lengthy motion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. So those in favour were Councillor Horn, Price, Shepherd and Landells. Those against were Councillor Dowsley, Burke and Councillor Harvey. Thank you. The motion is carried. Councillors, we will now return to our place in the agenda and go to item 12.2, the Creative Indigo Strategy Advisory Committee Formation and Strategy Progress Report.
Sorry, could I just amend that?
So, Councillor, you would like to move a motion?
I would like to move a motion. Let me see what I would like to move. I would like to move that number one, the council endorses the establishment of the Indigo Shire Creative Indigo Advisory Committee and amends the attached terms of reference for the Indigo Shire Creative Indigo Advisory Committee to state 2 appointed Indigo Shire councillors, non-voting count towards quorum. Number 3, adopts the terms of reference as amended in point 2, appoints councillors Diane Shepherd and yet to be discussed. So we've decided on Councillor Dowsley as the second member, adopts the terms of reference as amended in point 2, appoints councillors Diane Shepherd and Councillor Jane Downsley as councillors representatives on the committee, and accepts a Creative Indigo Strategy progress report. Goodness.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillors, that alternate wording has been circulated. The difference from the agenda being that we nominate the councillors that we're appointing to that committee, and also make sure that that is 2 councillors, which is in line with those that we have representing our advisory committee typically. So Councillor Shepherd, you have moved that motion. Can I have someone to second the motion? Councillor Landells. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would. So we've had a steering committee that's been part of this Creative Indigo strategy, and both Councillor Dowsley and I were on that steering committee, as well as a number of community members who have brought forth over the past 4 years now, 3 years, working with consultants and working with our staff, the Creative Indigo strategy. And now we have the opportunity to set up an advisory committee, as per similarly to our other advisory committees, which will definitely speak to the strategy, meet twice a year, and will assess the progress against the strategy's objectives, review the annual action plans, and facilitate two-way dialogue between council and creative communities. The biannual meeting schedule provides regular oversight without creating excessive administrative burden. I think that's an important note to make, allowing sufficient time for strategic assessment and the integration of community feedback. So they will directly support planning activities, engagement initiatives, and annual progress reporting. Just looking for the... It's a number of people that are meant to be involved. 5 to 7. 5 to 7 community members, and they will be, we'll do an expression of interest for those people that like to be involved, and the 2 council representatives, and the terms of reference are attached to this document. The other thing that we're presenting tonight is how that strategy has been progressing in the past year, and we've done a number of amazing things, really. We've worked with creative outcomes in the public room. We've had our strategy has now been included across the whole of our council strategies. So we now have a cross-council meeting to discuss how to include creative initiatives within council strategies and projects. So again, we're removing one of those silos. I think that sometimes creative stuff's over here, and now we're moving it back right full and centre into council action and council processes. We've adopted a public art policy, and that I think that was last month. That's going to be a great policy where we're going to be able to have accessibility for community members and artists. We do have budget constraints around that, but we've got that process underway. We've done youth intergenerational community engagement with strong participation in the Still Life series, which is happening again, and lots of youth-led events. We've done First Peoples engagement by developing and publishing engagement protocols, and we're at the moment commissioning framework for traditional owner artists. We're at the moment asking for traditional owner artists to fulfil a expression of interest. We've had trouble doing a dedicated communications platform because we don't have the money nor the capacity, but we're working with Murray Arts to create an opportunity to speak out to all creatives within the community, and to have a list of who they are and a database, and that will come really from Murray Arts as a from their framework, but we will support it. We've also been doing sector development support, and we're doing a community facilities review to see what else we can use those buildings for around activated for artistic and cultural use. So as you can see, it's been a very busy space, and we look forward to the new advisory committee once we've had the new members in being able to take this forward even further.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Landels, would you like to speak as seconder? And just before you do, Councillor Landels, I'm just going to see if I can speak to Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey, we're having issues with your camera, but if that's an issue that you can fix on your end, we need to record your attendance in the meeting by being able to see you. So hopefully we can see you by the time we take the vote on this item. Councillor Landels, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Price, and thanks, Councillor Shepherd, for such an in-depth appraisal of the progress on the Creative Indigo strategy. I think this is a really important piece of work, and it's yet another step along the way to embed our Creative Indigo strategy. It's quite a unique strategy, I think, for a council of our size to have, but it's really important to, I think we all understand that the arts are a key feature of Indigo Shire. And if we just look at some of the communities, Arts Rutherglen, Arts Yakandanda, Beechworth Arts Council, in Chiltern, there's a very keen group of artists that have frequent exhibitions at the courthouse. And it even goes to the visibility of arts in our communities. We have artists that have shop fronts in main streets, which I think is quite unique. You know, we've had a couple of those in Yakandana for a while, and we've also got them in Chiltern as well. So I think the arts is really intrinsic to Indigo Shire, and it's very easy to sometimes just accept it as part of the landscape that we have. But it is really important that it doesn't happen by itself. A lot of these communities have vibrant local art scenes that are run by volunteers. It's really important that those volunteers have a lot of structure and some proactive effort going into making sure that they're really being enabled to, I guess, unleash the creativity. And I do also want to make mention of some of the communities out around Tangam and Kagunya and those areas. Make point that there are creative people in those communities. I know artists that live out there, and I think whilst there may not be a formal arts group in those areas, I think perhaps through the strategy here we can, and through the community representatives anyway, we can hopefully have a really inclusive input so into some of those communities. So for creative people everywhere, I think this is a really valuable document. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. I just note at this point that Councillor Harvey is no longer present with us in the meeting. He's having tech issues, and so he will try and rejoin the meeting, but at this stage won't participate. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Go back to you, Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, well, what I'd like to say is this is a very exciting stage of our creative Indigo strategy. We are now moving forward with our creative industries around us, and we're very much part of that collaboration with the creatives, and it's just fantastic that we've finally got here, because for a long time I don't think we did recognise well the amazing creative people within our shire, and we are known to be one of the highest, we have the highest number of residents, people within our shire who are from the creative industry. So I think it's reflective that we are now really working with them to do some great work. And I'd just like to also thank the staff who did a lot. Again, there's only a couple of them. We are a small shire, but they do work above and beyond their capacity. And I think the terms of reference and the strategy and the work that they're doing is to be commended.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.3 is the Swimming Pools Season Report 2024-25. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council receives the 2024-25 Swimming Pools Season Report. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Dowsley. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I move the motion to receive the 2024-25 Swimming Pool Season Report. I've been engaged in Facebook comments about our pools since this report has been published. There's no doubt people care about these facilities and value what they mean to their towns. I welcome that support. However, some of the criticism directed at the management of the pools is unfounded. This report shows that Council, through its contract with Belgravia Leisure, is working hard to deliver safe, compliant and accessible facilities, despite growing costs and ageing infrastructure. This report gives us a clear and honest picture of the challenges facing our community pools and all pools just like this all around Australia. This is not unique. These facilities were built 50 to 60 years ago, often through the hard work of volunteers, and they continue to be loved as places for families to cool off, socialise and stay active during summer. However, the report also highlights some difficult realities. Operating our pools cost $850,000 this season, while income was just $145,000, leaving ratepayers covering over $700,000. We need to ask ourselves, is this the best way to spend $700,000 of ratepayers' money? Visitation dropped by almost 6,000 visits this season compared to last year, with Tangambalanga and Beechworth seeing the largest falls. At the same time, costs are rising due to wages, chemicals, electricity, and the fact that our pool infrastructure is ageing and harder to maintain. Despite these challenges, there were positives. Vic Swim programs broke attendance records. The Bush Nippers program continues to grow, and the new initiatives like Go Swim at Beechworth were well received. Council also invested over $75,000 in capital works to keep our facilities safe and welcoming, including pool liners, solar heating and repairs. It is good that Council staff are developing an aquatic strategy. This will guide how we manage these valued but ageing assets in the years ahead and ensure we plan for sustainable, safe and accessible aquatic facilities. For now, this report gives us the facts we need. It doesn't make decisions tonight about changes. It simply provides the data and insight needed for future planning. I commend the officers for their work and support and move this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I'll just record that Councillor Harvey has managed to rejoin the meeting. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to speak as the seconder? Councillor Harvey, we're just speaking to item 12.3, the Swimming Pools Season Report 2024-25. We've had a mover speak and now we'll have the seconder speak to the motion. Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor Price. Royal Lifesaving Australia publishes an annual report on the state of aquatic facilities across the country. In their 2025 report, they noted that the national average for aquatic facility provision is 1 pool per 12,800 people. In Indigo Shire, we operate at 1 pool per 3,400 people, nearly 4 times the national average. The report also highlights that over 500 public pools nationally are nearing the end of their usable lifespan, with no coordinated national plan to address this looming infrastructure crisis. At the same time, local governments are under increasing financial pressure to maintain these ageing assets. We can't ignore the reality. Maintaining 5 ageing pools presents a significant financial challenge for Indigo Shire Council. The usage cost per visit that's noted in the report is confronting. These are not small numbers, but we're far from alone, as Councillor Burke has indicated. At the National General Assembly in Canberra a few weeks ago, I was speaking with a councillor from East Gippsland who reported costs of over $150 per visit at one of their 6 community pools. Understandably, our communities are highly engaged in these discussions, and rightly so. Pools are more than just recreational infrastructure. They're part of our town's identities, community health and social connection. As we move forward with developing this strategy, I'm particularly interested in how our communities will be engaged in shaping both the strategy and its recommendations, and I look forward to seeing the stakeholder engagement plan for this strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
When I note that most of the drownings are in rivers and creeks, I think the importance of having swimming pools where people can learn to swim in a safe environment is becoming increasingly important to all of our communities.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
As per the aforementioned Royal Life Saving Report, I thought it was worth saying what their key recommendations were: to establish a national public pool investment program, develop a national public pool planning framework, strengthen workforce protections and professional development, and implement national sustainability standards for aquatic facilities. All things that are not council-led. They're all nationally, it's a request for national observance, really. And I think we've got $80,000 that we're going to put into our aquatic strategy, and we're going to be looking at our deteriorating assets. We're going to be doing feasibility studies, and then we're going to be looking at the future of our pools. But really, we don't have the money and the resources to do what we should be doing to those pools in a time of climate emergency, really, where people need access to water, in a time when so many young people especially, are drowning in rivers and surf. We need to be continuing the great programs that we are saying are successful and people are attending, but we have great difficulty funding that infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just add a short comment to say I feel like I make the same comments each year when we receive this pools report. We are waiting for the strategy from the federal and state governments. We're waiting to see whether the federal and state governments see value in rural and regional areas still being able to have pools. I think that we can see what would naturally happen if they don't place value in that. But we really are looking for direction for them. We're doing our own work strategically for Indigo Shire, but what is the direction and where is the funding made available from the federal government? That's what we're looking for. That's a position of this council. That's a position of Rural Councils Victoria, of MAV. I would hasten to guess that it's a position of all of Australia. And so we keep looking to the federal government to say, what is your strategy for rural and regional areas? Do we deserve swimming pools or not? I will now go back to Councillor Burke as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Just one thing, I was going to ask a question about visitation. Perhaps if I could ask the Acting Director for Economic Development and Community, if we could, there's been some suggestions within my community that the visitation count may not be accurate, as it may not be capturing all annual pass holders. So is there a way that we can validate that and check that Belgravia are capturing all the data?
Acting Director of Community and Economic Development, Jess Reid.
Thanks, Councillor Burke. So we work with our third-party contractor, Belgravia, who manages those pool sites. They're responsible for recording that visitor data for us. Now, we are broadly aware of at times when a lifeguard or a pool attendant is away from the kiosk that seasons pass holders can slip through. However, hopefully it's not a regular occurrence. So I will work with my team to touch base with them. We work regularly with Belgravia on just raising matters that we have and are raised with from community members. So we'll make sure we focus on that now and into the new pool season.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I just sum up?
Yes, please, Councillor.
Our pools are loved community spaces for locals to cool off and connect, but they're costly, ageing and underused. Facts must guide our future planning on these community assets. This is the starting point of that planning. And I look for support on the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Harvey, can I just check that you are able to participate in the vote? If you're in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. I'll record that he's frozen, say the motion is carried unanimously. Move to item 13.1, the asset plan. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the updated asset plan version 2. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd.
Excuse me, I would like to defer this motion if I could.
Yep.
Really, as per the submission that we received, discussing the lack of green infrastructure as an asset being discussed, just wondering whether we could have an opportunity to spend a bit more time looking at this issue with our staff.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. So the request is for deferral to consider more of a discussion on green infrastructure. Do I have somebody to second that motion for deferral? Councillor Dowsley. It's a procedural motion, councillors. There's no debate on the motion, so I'll put it to the vote now. All those in favour to defer the asset plan? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is Office of the CEO and item 14.1 is the Councillor Professional Development Policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the Councillor Professional Development Policy for the purpose of public exhibition, and 2 notes that the policy will be placed on public exhibition for a period of 21 days from the 30th of July to the 20th of August 2025. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Landell, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Landell.
Thanks, Mayor Price. I think that this policy, like so many policies the council have, it's an important document simply because I guess I'm speaking from the perspective of a new councillor here, but even for councillors that have been on council before, there's always a lot of training and upgrading of skills, I think, that are needed. And certainly when you start off on council, it can be quite a steep learning curve, just getting your head around a lot of the, putting you in a position where you can make informed decisions at quite a high level of professionalism and that meets the community's expectations, and also a lot of legislation in the Local Government Act and various other acts of government. So I just sort of, and on top of that, there's also other events, conferences, etc., that councillors and mayors take part in. There's specific training for mayors and deputy mayors and the like. So I just think it's important that we have a policy like this that just makes it very clear about how all that operates and that it's transparent too, so the community can just be aware of how we are professionally being prepared to do this role, and also what allowances there are for councillors to undertake that training. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landell. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I think it's great to have this in a formal sense. We've had that $15,000 in the budget every year for us to do professional development, and it often has relied on us seeing what we would like to learn a little bit more about and to put proposals forward. I'd just like to thank the staff for looking at all the opportunities available for us over the next year or so, and really giving us an outline of what we could be doing, as well as the internal work that will be offered to us to bring us up to. So it's not ad hoc anymore. We now have in front of us a professional development program, and we absolutely need it. There is an expectation that we are professional in our roles and we need to know a lot. So it's legislated, but it's also a very important aspect of our learning. So thank you. I really appreciate having this in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to support this, and it's something that maybe people who are not aware of, but in all professions, there is an expectation of professional development. So whether it's accounting, law, even company directors are expected to have regular professional development. Gone are the days where you go to uni, you do your course, and you sit back for 30 years and don't learn anything more about the latest developments in your field of expertise. So it's quite a normal practice, and it's good to see that policy put in place.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Landells. Would you like to sum up?
No, thanks.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is the councillor gift and hospitality policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council notes that no feedback on the draft policy was received during the public exhibition period, and 2, adopts the councillor gift and hospitality policy as attached. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Landells. Councillor Shepherd.
So I note that there were no submissions for this policy. We did bring it 30 days ago for discussion, and really it's intended to support councillors and Indigo Shire Council to avoid conflicts of interest and maintain high levels of integrity and public trust, and to set out the process to be followed if we are offered gifts and hospitality as representatives of council. So it's a very clear outline as to what our expectations are, and it's basically do not receive any gifts. And it's also there for the community to see that we are not meant to be influenced by any hospitality or gifts, and it will be sad, but we will have to refuse their offers.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thanks.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just read the statement that is in the discussion section of the report as referenced by Councillor Shepherd. The policy assumes in the first instance that gifts and hospitality will be refused in order to avoid such conflicts of interest. And I think that is important, that's the one takeaway from this policy for our community. And I think it also provides a very clear line for councillors to be able to articulate to the community when they are refusing those gifts to say, thank you, but no thank you. I give enough thanks for being in the role. So it's a very clear position. I'll now return to Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3, draft community engagement policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorses the draft community engagement policy for public exhibition for a period of 28 days and invites submissions. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Landells. Councillor Shepherd.
Sorry, I just need to take a breath. Community engagement. Wow, this is pretty topical. This is a great policy. We wrote it a few years ago. This is being updated. If only we did everything that we said we're going to do on this policy, I think we'll be doing a great job. I think we need to be held account to this policy often. It very clearly states what needs to happen in terms of when we should engaging with the community, how we should be engaging with the community, how we should be closing the loop when we've engaged with the community. And it gives the ways that we will engage with them as well. And it's all perfect. Look, I couldn't really fault the things that we say we're going to do. But the next role, when we do approve this engagement policy, is to ensure that across our Shire Council and across the councillor group, we are very aware of our expectations when we are engaging with the community around nearly all aspects, really, of our decision making.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Endels, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I remember a time when engagement meant something very different to what it does here. It's along with community and sustainability, it's the buzzword of the last decade or so. But what I find with, I think as someone who's, worked a bit in promotional and marketing roles at different times, it just is such a complex field to get communication right and how you're going to engage with the community. It's often use the term horses for courses. You've really got to. It's a complex art, really. I think in terms of the appropriate level of and strategies around engagement, depending on what type of thing we're talking about. If we're seeking feedback on something, or if we're, that feedback can be done via online means, face-to-face, getting out into the community. And of course, there's still the good old, some people still write letters as well. So, we have to have a very wide net and a very diverse manner of options for people. And as I say, it often will vary. The mix of all those have to be sort of customised a little bit for the different types of opportunities to engage. So it does require a policy, and I guess where we really think through the appropriate strategies and approaches to all those different engagement opportunities. So I think it's great that we've got a policy, and I also want to thank the staff in that area who do an amazing job, because it's highly specialised work.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just like to reflect that I thought the report very appropriately reflected the feedback that we'd received, both positive and either negative or providing areas for improvement. And the report talks about that this feedback reinforces that while council has strong engagement infrastructure, the community continues to seek more genuine influence in decision-making processes. The updated policy directly responds to these concerns through enhanced accountability measures and clearer commitments about how community input will shape council decisions. And I hope that when community read this policy, they see that it is of interest to all of us. We welcome your feedback on how we can continue to engage with you in better ways, in the most appropriate ways, to a good standard. And that's why this policy seeks to put in place those accountability measures and a commitment to continuous improvement. If then no other councillor would like to speak to the motion, I'll go back to Councillor Shepherd as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
I would. I really appreciate the comments you made that this definitely does reflect the areas of improvements that were identified and have been addressed in this policy. And in doing so, I'd just like to thank Mel Collis for the great work that she does in keeping us engaged with the community. Again, we're a small council. There's not many officers and staff members doing this work, although it is something that has to be done, of course, across the whole council and staff. But she's the head honcho in that space, and she does an amazing job, and I really appreciate the effort she's gone to ensure that the feedback has come back. She's improved this document. let's go forward and implement it.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is the delegations review. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 adopts the following instruments of delegation. Again, it's quite a lengthy recommendation. I'll read some of the headings. The instrument of delegation council to the CEO, the instrument of delegation council to members of council staff, the instrument of subdelegation council to members of staff under the Environment Protection Act 2017, Section 18, and 2 notes that all the delegations come into force immediately upon this resolution being made. 3 revokes all previous delegations to the Chief Executive Officer and to members of staff. 4 notes that the duties and functions set out in the instruments must be performed and the powers set out in the instruments must be executed in accordance with any guidelines or policies of council that it may from time to time adopt. And 5, ceases the requirement to report on contracts awarded under CEO delegation each month in the council agenda, noting that the CEO has a financial delegation of up to 500,000. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Burke. Councillor Shepherd.
So without delegations, we as a council group would be having to do all this work. And it's quite a lot, as per having to do health inspections and everything, all the other planning delegations. So we've decided we're not capable of that, and thus, and we're also legislated, of course, to delegate those roles to our staff within the council. So in February, a review of the instruments were commenced, and we had 2 legislative updates, and the updates include changes made from July 2024, and they are all in the table below of who will be doing. Some of them are new provisions, some of them are removed positions, and some of them are updated position titles. And I'm just pleased that we're able to pass these roles on to other delegates. So thank you, Annabelle, for doing this work.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thanks.
Okay. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillor Harvey did not participate in that vote. He's obviously still having tech issues. We'll move now to item 14.5, Advisory Committee Minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees and endorses the officer recommended actions for 1, the Finance Committee, and 2, the Indigo Community Access Committee. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Landell, seconded councillor Burke. Councillor Landell.
Yes, thanks. These a lot goes on behind the scenes in council, and obviously we have council meetings here. We have staff that perform an extensive range of tasks as their daily roles, and then there's also advisory committees where often we have staff as well as councillors and community members coming together to work on various different advisory committees. I'd like to talk specifically just a little bit about the Indigo Community Access Committee, because that's one that Councillor Burke and myself were on, and I think I chaired this particular meeting in Chiltern in April. And we had members from the tourism team come and talk about the destination, or is it DMP 35, I think, which is their plan that they're talking about. So they were getting some early engagement around access issues with that committee. We also had a member of the Chiltern community come in and talk to us about access concerns that he had around the main intersection. And that was just, I think he really appreciated that opportunity to just come and talk about his concerns with people who share those concerns and have that wide knowledge of some of the access issues right across Indigo Shire. So, yeah, just a little bit of an insight into some of the work that goes on these advisory committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thanks.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Landels. Did you want to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.6 is informal meeting of councillors record. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors records. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved, Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Dowsley. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to speak as seconder? If nobody else would like to speak to the motion, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.7 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for June 2025. The item is for information. The following contract was awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of 250,000 and 500,000 for the month of June 2025. It was a MAV insurance, annual insurance renewals to the amount of $318,938.37, excluding GST. Item 15 is the notice of motion, which we dealt with earlier in the agenda. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Does any councillor have a report that they would like to make to the council meeting tonight? Councillor Landels.
Yes, I'd just like to mention a few events that I've attended over the past month. One I mentioned or just referred to was the Community Access Committee. We had a meeting here in Beechworth on 7th of July. In actual fact, as I say that, I think we might have been just shy of a quorum. So whilst people did gather, and the meeting had to be unofficial in the end because we didn't have quite, I think we missed out by one person of having a quorum. I also attended AGMs for Arts Father Glen and Chiltern Tourism Development Inc. And they were both on the 17th of July. And there's, they're two really, I attend those meetings on a regular basis anyway for those groups. And they're both, they're just quiet achievers going along, meeting every month and doing lots of behind the scenes planning for events and trying to keep their communities vibrant. Obviously, Arts Father Glen is very much in an arts vein, but they've returned pretty much the same executive as previous, which is Beth Rankin as president. And Chiltern Tourism had a change of president with Matt Williams stepping aside after a number of years and Merv Ray taking over the president's role there.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the meeting? No, we'll go on to item 16.2, the Mayor's Diary, which is for information, and it lists all the attended functions, events, meetings for June 2025. Item 17 is the Decisions Register. Again, that's for information. And the report outlines actions from council resolutions as at the 23rd of June 2025, including those not previously listed as completed, but not including resolutions to note or report. Item 18 is general business. Do any councillors have any general business for the meeting? Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, as I said earlier, I attended the Kerford oration and we heard Gillian Calvert AO, leading advocate for children and families, speak about the importance of children and young people, and especially talked about involving youth in decision making, which did make me question what we're doing at the moment. I know it's new council, we haven't necessarily had that discussion yet about our youth involvement. So looking to ask the CEO whether we could have a briefing where we just hear what's happening in that space.
CEO.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Price. We're very happy to take that question and comment on and bring to a future council briefing a rundown on what we're currently doing in that space and then start that discussion from there.
Do any other councillors have any general business to raise with the council meeting? Councillor Horn?
Yes, I have two, please. The group Dreams Can Come True in Chiltern. This is a group that provides debutantes with gowns and outfits for gentlemen as well. They were looking to relocate their building in Chiltern. Can we have an update, please, on that situation?
So, Councillor Horn, are you asking about the facilities review that they're aware of in terms of where they might like to relocate to? Is that the question? And is the question to the CEO or to the Acting Director of Community and Economic Development?
Oh, whoever would like to answer it.
Acting Director of Community and Economic Development, Jess Reid.
Thank you, Madam Price. So council officers are currently undertaking a community facilities review, and it's looking at the management, use of facilities and long-term sustainability of council assets. So that community facilities review is due to be completed in October this year.
Thank you. Thank you. My other query refers to the Emergency Services and Volunteers Levy. There was a rally on Saturday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend it. But a question to the CEO. Can you give us an update, please, on that situation?
CEO.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Through you, Mayor Price. Lots of updates on the ESVF levy itself. Councils right across the state are really, I say, fair to say, up in arms about the entire process. The Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund levy represents a significant increase in that levy for nearly everyone who's involved in it. With the residential levy will go up, I think it's something like 40%, commercial up of 60 or 70%, and in the case of farmers, many of them are going to double. It's an impulse at a time when people can least afford it. It's a tax for the state government being asked to be collected by councils and passing it on, so we're becoming a tax collector. These levies will be included in an envelope with other people's rates, and those other people's rates are rate capped to the tune of 3% this year, but apparently charges that are instigated by the state aren't subject to rate caps. So it seems, so you've got a dilemma there as well. You referenced the rally in Melbourne. I was able to attend that rally in Melbourne along with representatives from about 22 other councils who were able to go. I think it's a bit unfair from those who say that the councils who didn't go weren't also in, I'll say, horror of this tax. There were a number of councils that wanted to go that just weren't able to make the trip to Melbourne, but fair to say everyone who went was supportive of pushing back against this unfair tax. And most other councils around the state, I'm sure I can speak on their behalf, saying we're all against it, and we're all in our own ways protesting it, writing letters, speaking publicly against it, and so on. So we passed a motion, I think, not sure how many months ago now, it might have been February, I think it might have been, where we rejected the tax and the need for us to collect it, and called upon the state to reconsider that tax and not include it in the first place, or if it still went ahead, that councils weren't the tax collector for them on that behalf. I don't know if that answered all of your questions, Councillor, on perhaps me, if you want to add to that as well.
Yeah, I'd say, as CEO said, we have moved our own motion. We're part of the Hume Region Local Government Network, which has also expressed unanimously that concern. I'm on the board of Rural Councils Victoria, who again has expressly stated that position. I know MAV is also expressing that same position, and at the moment, Rural Council Victoria and MAV are working on a joint letter to the state government to that effect. And the state government has really brought us all together, because I think right across the sector, there is unanimous rejection of that tax. It also extends out to our emergency services who we're in lockstep with and supporting. So the message should be loud and clear, and Indigo is absolutely playing our part in all of that advocacy at every opportunity that we have. Do we have any other items for general business for the council meeting? No? If not, I will declare the meeting closed at 8:16 p.m. and the next council meeting is Tuesday, the 26th of August, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.